Bisho.
Hey there everyone! So my friend Akobo suggested I talk about the 1977 movie House. Now I knew very little about the movie, but based on this terrifying poster, I was expecting some strange foreign art house horror film, and I got exactly that. And it's amazing. House is the product of one Nobuhiko Obayashi. Obayashi grew up in a time where Japanese cinema was on the decline. It was a factor of both the rise of television and the general lack of interest in cinema from the younger generation. As a result, Obayashi would often make short films with his friends, not having the budget for a feature-length film. These short films would be screened at universities and event halls for students to watch. Then he did the unthinkable. He directed commercials.
Coffee. 上には上の
However, it did catch the eye of Toho Studios, who wanted to replicate the success of the 1975 blockbuster Jaws, with Obayashi developing the script.
スピルバーが上手を取りましたね。だから日本でも映画界ではアマチュアと言われていた、映画作家、フィルムメーカーのがムービーを撮ってくれないかと考えた人が一人二人いましてね。
Now if you ask most people to make a story like Jaws, they'd probably start by looking at other scary animals similar to sharks. Well, you're gonna quickly learn that Obayashi doesn't think like most people. In fact, he started by asking his 10-year-old daughter Shigumi what would make an interesting story. His reasoning behind this was that he felt that adults were essentially boring with their ideas, while children can be much more imaginative.
なぜかというと、大人は自分が分かることしか考えないから人間のレベルだからつまらない。子供はね、分からないことと向き合うのね。不思議なことが面白い。
So Obayashi and writer Chiho Katsura came up with an idea about a house that eats girls, while utilizing childhood fears shared by Shigumi. And while a lot of people, including my title, refer to this movie as horror, both Obayashi and Katsura think of it more as a fantasy film.
ホラーとは思えないんですよ。やっぱりホラーっていうのはもっとサスペンスでしょ。あれはね、ファンタジーだと少女のね。はい。
だから映画のジャンルじゃなかったの、僕たちにとって。ホラームービーという言い方は僕たちはない時代だから、あくまでもあれは怪奇と幻想であって。
Also, I want to clarify something real quick. This movie's official title is House, not HAUSU. From what I can tell, the name HAUSU was given by the internet because it's how Japanese people pronounce the English word house. I think the title HAUSU just stuck with people, but it also helps distinguish the movie. Like the title House can be confused with the 1985 American horror movie House, and also the Hugh Laurie show House.
Huh?
Ironically, House was given because a foreign title for a Japanese movie was taboo. So the script was quickly greenlit by Toho, but no one dared to direct as they feared it would ruin their careers. Obayashi offered to do it himself, but he wasn't able to due to a rule only Toho employees can direct. So he decided to go on a huge marketing campaign. There was a fashion show with the cast of the movie, a manga from Monthly Shonen magazine, a novelization, and even a full soundtrack album. All of which was supported by those same attendees of Obayashi's short films who would grow up to work in the entertainment industry. But it would be a wildly successful house radio drama co-directed by Obayashi himself that would finally push Toho to give in to the pressure and let him direct. For the next 2 years while the film was being made, hype for House was building. Was the hype worth it? Let's find out. The movie starts like a Metal Gear Solid codec scene, but it's actually just our protagonist Gorgeous getting her photo taken by her friend. You're probably thinking, wow, that's a weird shot. Trust me, you ain't seen nothing yet. Summer is finally here. Gorgeous is going to a resort with her rich dad, while her friends are going camping with their teacher, Mr. Togo. Gorgeous comes home to her dad, who's in front of a very convincing skyline. He introduces Gorgeous to Ryoko, her soon-to-be stepmom, after Gorgeous' biological mom passed away 8 years ago. Her dad wants to start anew, but she doesn't agree and escapes to her room. She reminisces about her childhood, where she comes to the conclusion that she hates her dad now. At school, we get introduced to the rest of the supporting cast, with their very literal names. Fantasy is always daydreaming, especially about Mr. Togo. Prof is the Velma-type character who only believes in science and logic. Mac is the stereotypical fat girl who just likes food. Sweet is, nice? All the characters are pretty nice though. I guess she likes to clean? She even says she does. There's Melody, who of course likes to play music. Finally, we have Kung Fu, the strong girl who's probably the best character in this entire film. Unfortunately for the group, Mr. Togo's sister is having a baby, so they can't go on the trip anymore because she owned the place they were planning to stay at. But Gorgeous invites them to go to her aunt's house instead, who she mailed a letter to asking if they can come. Now, I don't need to tell you that the directing and editing is very odd. However, this is all intentional. Obayashi's main goal is to make a movie that would offend any traditional Japanese director.
黒沢や小津がこれを見たら腹立てて怒るような演出は何だろう、あ、こうだ、それをやろうと、そういうことだけで作ったのがハウスですから。
He really wanted to make a Japanese movie like no other, and I gotta say, he did just that. So it turns out that Gorgeous's aunt, or auntie as I'll be referring to her as, has been waiting for Gorgeous for years it seems, and accepts the girls coming over with more than open arms. Also, Blanca the cat shows up literally out of nowhere. Ryoko wants to join Gorgeous so the two can talk. I guess she wants to convince Gorgeous to come back home so they can go on the resort trip, or maybe it's so she can explain that she's gonna be a good mother. I don't know what she wants, but the way these two phrase it, it sounds like they want to kidnap Gorgeous. But all this talk about dead moms is a bit too somber, so the film fades into what seems like the start of a musical, with Mr. Togo leaving for the trip. That is until Blanca shows up, causing Mr. Togo to trip down the stairs and onto a bucket. This scene is like something pulled straight from the Looney Tunes. So now Mr. Togo has to go to the hospital to get his bucket ass fixed, while the girls take a train on their own. All the sweet tunes in this film were composed by the band Godaigo. Initially, Issei Kobayashi wanted to work on the film after seeing Obayashi's commercial work, but disagreed with the fantastical direction of the film. Upon Obayashi's insistence, Kobayashi agreed to write the more gothic piano pieces, but he suggested the younger Godaigo compose the soundtrack as they better fit the fun vibe of the movie. It's this soundtrack, by the way, that was used in the radio drama during Obayashi's marketing campaign. I was able to find the full thing on YouTube, and I was really excited to listen to it until I realized I don't speak Japanese. So thank you, Galabon, for sharing the details of the story to me. It's surprisingly different from the film, even though Obayashi was attached to the project. Galabon theorizes that the story is a little bit more subdued to appeal to the older radio listeners. I mean, can you even imagine how they must have felt going from a radio drama to this? With Mr. Togo recovering from his accident, the girls board the train where there's a quick cameo from Godaigo. Blanca also appears because he's just like that. Fantasy asks Gorgeous to tell her more about Auntie, and we get a movie reel about her backstory while the girls react like Mystery Science Theater. Essentially, Auntie plans to marry her fiance, but he was drafted into World War II as a pilot. Auntie made a promise to wait for him forever, but he never returned, presumably being killed by the atomic bomb. She continued to remain at her house where she grew bitter and old. This movie does have some pretty dark themes, the most obvious one being the atomic bomb, as Obayashi grew up witnessing many of his childhood friends pass away from it.
僕の親しい同年配の子供たちはみんな原爆で死んでますから、やっぱり原爆というテーマでね、このファンタジーをこしらえてみようと。
The movie also commentates on children's innocence and the younger generation not having a full grasp of how devastating of an experience the atomic bomb had on so many people. And while Obayashi's later works lay these heavy themes onto the audience hard, I think House remains a fun and whimsical film even with this dark twist. The train gets to the girls' stop and they make their way across the countryside where even they comment on the bizarre looking landscape. They meet a weird watermelon vendor who points out where the house is, and fun fact, is actually played by Issei Kobayashi himself. The girls all head to the house and meet Auntie after Blanca opens the door. Melody asks why Auntie is in a wheelchair, and she just shrugs it off. Obviously something weird is going on, like how Blanca is somehow teleporting all over the place and then magically causes Fantasy to drop her camera. But you know, that's probably just an accident, so they all enter the house and holy shit! Yeah, that's totally a normal reaction to what just happened. The cast of the main girls consisted of amateur actors who had only previously worked as models in Obayashi's commercials. In fact, most of the cast were made up of either novice actors or just Obayashi's friends. The actor who plays Gorgeous's father is actually a prolific author with over 380 books to his name. Mr. Togo's actor was friends with Obayashi through their hobby of horseback riding, and he's also an award-winning singer. Really, the only veteran actor in the movie is Yoko Minamida, the actress who plays Auntie. In fact, she was one of the top actresses in Japan at the time, but after having a hard time finding film projects, she accepted to be in-house, having worked in Obayashi's commercials.
カルピスとブランデーをミックスして洒落たカルピスカクテルをお楽しみください.
This choice was actually a really big deal at the time, because Japanese actors and actresses had an age restriction where they couldn't play anyone far below or far above their age. So it meant a lot for Minamida to accept playing an old woman for this movie, and she's by far one of the best parts of it. So Mac ends up buying a watermelon from the mysterious melon man and stores it in the well, since the fridge isn't working. Sweet loves to clean and wants to get the broom from the closet, and while everyone is eating, Mac runs off to fetch the melon. After not returning for a while, Fantasy grows concerned and goes out to look for her, where we get an absolutely insane scene. So Mac Melon bites Fantasy, who flees screaming. She tells everyone there's a head in the well, but look, it's just a melon. Oh, Auntie gets out of her wheelchair, because everyone's enjoying the melon, but hey, there's no eye in melon. Sweet's cleaning is interrupted as she lured into the closet. Kung Fu is outside chopping some wood where it suddenly tries to attack her. But obviously this is Kung has her own theme song Fu, so she comes out the victor. While Fantasy and Prof are cleaning dishes, Auntie just hops into the fridge. And I'll let the movie speak for itself for a second. So Melody starts playing the movie's piano theme. Meanwhile, Gorgeous is putting on Auntie's makeup, which obviously changes her reflection. And then the mirror cracks, starts bleeding, and then Gorgeous's whole body just falls apart and becomes fire. What the fuck am I watching right now? The special effects in this movie are insane, and they're all done by Obayashi. Both Japanese and American cinema at the time focused on realistic effects. So Obayashi, being Obayashi, did the complete opposite. These special effects were made to look intentionally bad. He also didn't do any storyboarding on purpose, so he'd have to figure out how to shoot scenes on the fly. A lot of the effects work were experimental, and Obayashi wouldn't even know how it would look until he saw the final product.
それが特撮だと思う。ね。だから子供が作った特撮映画のように作りたいわけです。それが僕の場合、my way ね。
I do like the wonky looking effects though. It makes the movie feel more dreamlike, and I think it adds to the charm. It just makes the movie all the more memorable, you know? That being said, all the physical sets of the film were constructed by Toho staff. I find it so funny how the team behind Godzilla built the sets for this movie. According to Obayashi though, everyone had fun making this film.
他の撮影クルーの人たちから言わせると、こんな面白そうな楽しそうなみんながニコニコ笑い声の絶えない現場はちょっと見たことがないというぐらい楽しかったです。
The actresses would often play around, and Obayashi would actually join them. They'd sing and race around the studio, and even Toho veterans would join in.
それが仕事になってたんだけども、いや映画ってもともと遊んでるようなものだということでね、とにかく楽しかったです。
Where most directors would keep production strict and professional, Obayashi was different. So the movie just goes haywire, as if it wasn't crazy before. Sweet is locked in a closet by Blanque and engulfed by pillows, seemingly vanishing. The girls all go to look for Gorgeous, who's now possessed by Auntie, I guess? And we get an extremely long shot at like 3 frames per second. The phone line is down, so Gorgeous leaves the house to go to the police station, and the house just goes wild, trapping the remaining girls inside. Prof assesses the situation, and somehow concludes that Auntie is using devices to close all the doors. They find a human hand in a jar with Mac's ribbon, but Prof makes nothing of it. I guess to relax, Melody plays the piano again, because that's definitely what you should be doing right now. They hear Gorgeous's voice, so Kung Fu and Prof go investigate, while Fantasy chooses to stay with Melody, who's seemingly trapped playing the piano. The piano then breaks her fingers, and if that's not enough, it proceeds to pull her entire body inside, eating her. Kung Fu finds Sweet inside a grandfather clock upstairs, and finally Prof realizes that the house is haunted. They run downstairs to find the aftermath of the piano. The remaining 3 girls barricade themselves in a room, and it's revealed by a giant Gorgeous that Auntie died years ago, but her evil spirit remains eating any young girls. The girls are bombarded by poltergeist activity, and Kung Fu runs to get the phone, which starts choking her, but come on now. Then Kung Fu is pulled outside and fights Gorgeous's ghost until she's sent back into the room. The cat picture is discovered to be the source of the attacks, but before Kung Fu can stop it, she's killed by the ceiling lamp. But Kung Fu equipped Last Stand, so her legs fly out and destroy the cat picture, spewing blood everywhere. Mr. Togo finally arrives at the watermelon vendor, but he prefers bananas, which I guess kills the melon man. He turns to a skeleton, and Mr. Togo faints in his car. The floor opens up and Prof is pulled in and disintegrated. This effect was actually done by having the actress suspended upside down and then blue paint was poured onto her, which were then chroma keyed out. I just love the imaginative effects in this movie. Fantasy manages to make her way to Gorgeous, where she presumably dies. We cut to morning when Ryoko arrives at the house, and Mr. Togo has been turned into a pile of bananas. Ryoko finds Gorgeous, who says all her friends are sleeping, and then Ryoko is burned into nothing, and the movie ends. After witnessing a movie like House, you'd probably think, who the hell would watch this? Well, a lot of people apparently. House went on to be a commercial success, especially among kids and teenagers. Critics, however, hated the movie, saying it was trash or complete nonsense. And none of this was a surprise to Obayashi, but what was really surprising was the reaction from Toho. They also hated the movie and were really upset to see it be successful.
死ぬまでやってくれた大親友になった美術デザイナーが当時アメリカに行っていたトム・コタニというね仲間の東宝の監督に打った電報が象徴的です。残念ながらハウスは大ヒットしました。子供たちがとっても愛してくれました。
Though I just find it really bizarre that they wanted a movie to mimic Jaws in terms of its success, and they got exactly that, but were still disappointed. House actually outdid itself because in a time where cinema was dying, it managed to become a smash hit while also bringing the younger generation back into theaters.
そういう人たちはきちんとこの映画を愛してくれて、映画館まで15歳以下だけがずらりと並んだというふうな事件にもなったということだし。
キネマ旬報って雑誌があるでしょ。あれにその若いなんか自分の好きな映画10本っていう近頃のあれが特集があっての本があってその中に自分の一番好きな映画ハウスなんて言ってる人もいるんでね。
Better yet, it would propel Obayashi's career into becoming a cult classic director, where he continued to make films until his passing in 2020. And honestly, if you didn't enjoy House, maybe you found it too out there, then I'm happy, or unhappy, to say that this is the craziest Obayashi gets with his movies. The thing is, those movies are actually great and criminally underrated. House is by far Obayashi's most popular film with 300k views on Letterboxd, but if you go down his filmography, you'll quickly see that the views drop and it's a shame. Obayashi is a one-of-a-kind director and it's sad to see that his work doesn't get more love. Unfortunately, if you want to find more of his works, you're gonna have some trouble. Not many of his films are readily available and lack English translations. Luckily though, there have been many efforts to preserve Obayashi's films. On the Internet Archive, you can find a plethora of his movies, even his short films, all of which are downloadable and a majority of them have subtitle files. But if you don't have the time or hard drive space to download these because they can get pretty hefty, some of the films are actually on YouTube thanks to user Obayashi Archive. Obayashi has made so many movies covering various topics that there's probably something for everyone. And if you don't know where to start, because honestly this can be overwhelming, here's some personal recommendations out of the small batch of films I've seen, but I definitely plan on watching more. There's The Discarnates, which follows a lonely man who meets the ghost of his parents. This was the first Obayashi film I watched after seeing House, so imagine my surprise when the directing is so normal.
制作を離れるの？移動の時期じゃないでしょ。
There's also his motorbike Her Island, which is a great romance movie about Bosuzoku, aka Japanese biker subculture. The Rocking Horseman is one of my personal favorites. It's a slice of life comedy about a group of students who want to start a band. It's literally K-On before K-On.
全くもう何から何までひねしきってやりたいほど羨ましい男で。ひねしきるとはつねり上げることなのである。
Finally, there's Bound for the Fields, the Mountains, and the Seacoast, which is like an anti-war masterpiece, and it's available on the Obayashi Archive YouTube channel. There's also the anti-war trilogy. I haven't gotten around to it yet, but I've only heard good things. I really recommend checking out any of these films. They're truly fantastic. If I hope to get anything out of this video, it's more eyes on Obayashi's films. Please go watch them. So yeah, that was House. I genuinely love this movie. It's just so batshit crazy and absolutely ridiculous, but the fact that it all comes from a genuine passion for filmmaking from Obayashi just makes it so much more than just a so bad it's good movie. While his other works have better directing and writing and are just in general better made movies, House is truly like no other. So yeah, thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe and all that shit, and I shall see you all later. Take care everyone.